I'll turn it over to Barbara Tien. She's the ringleader at Project Kin, and I'll let you. Okay. You can tell a little more about yourself. I guess.
Sure. Thank you very much. It's a delight to be here. I'm really quite honored. I have been hovering around the Family Search Center here in Salt Lake and elsewhere in Honolulu. I grew up in Honolulu, the one in Laie, for a long time, and it's really quite an honor and a privilege to have this opportunity here, and I'm very, very grateful to all of you for hosting me. My name is Barbara Tien, and I came to genealogy, you could say, late in life, but really I've kind of always had that interest. I have the gift that it took me a long time to really understand and appreciate of a grandmother who was an extraordinary amateur genealogist and a grandfather who was an amazing photographer, amateur, but very serious nerd photographer back at the turn of the last century. They both passed away quite young, and I never knew my grandmother at all. My grandfather passed, I met him just once, and we mostly lived overseas. So I didn't know any of my cousins or family. Came to California to live on the mainland for the first time. So I know been around the world a lot, but not really here. So a lot of what I've been doing lately has been a journey of discovery. And I most recently was co-founder of a company called Ponga.com, Ponga.com. And it was software, a platform that allowed you to bring stories into photographs, such as photographs of family history. And we did a little magic on your photos by doing things like finding the faces and matching faces that were the same person, giving you a really, I miss it, wonderful way to sort through piles of photos and put them in the right places and the right people together. Sadly, for a bunch of business reasons, we can't do that today. We've had to take the platform offline. But as we did that, I realized I had been the product and kind of customer champion, and I didn't want to lose my community. These people were really special. They were my friends, but also we shared a mission. We shared this mission of telling our family stories, and I was just getting started on my own. I invested a lot of time and a lot of money on our own software platform. I needed to find a way to do that myself. So realizing that I was unshackled from any platform, and I could be free to be spending my own money and being very cheap about it, I could help other people and help each other figure out the best way to do this. So what is this? This is projects. So often we talk about, what are you going to do with your pictures? What are you going to do with your family history? And I think in this modern world, as we go in the library back here, we have all of these beautiful books, because that's what you would do if you have a story to tell and pass it to the next generation. You put it in a book. Certainly you can do that today, but you have many other opportunities as well, maybe including books. But even if you were to write a book, you probably do it in digital form first anyway. So I started thinking about my own experience with digital technologies and the goal of telling stories, and realized I kind of have a unique perspective, and I can help a lot of people at once. So I founded a group. We first called it the Post-Ponga community, because I didn't have any time and had needed to do it right away while I was sending out emails. And in September, I changed the name. So that was May. In September, I changed the name to Project Kin, because it's about projects about our kin, but then all of us are Project Kin. And eventually I plan to turn it into a nonprofit. I'm still kind of figuring out how to do all of that. But the idea is, this is not a platform for me to go make money. I'm not going to get rich at this. It instead is something that over time, I would appreciate some way to take money in, give tax donation benefit back to run the operations. But I want this to happen. And so that's what we're doing. And we now have, just as of yesterday or something, 220 people and growing. We grew by 20% over the weekend because we were in Dick Eastman's newsletter. So, big bursts as people hear about it, which is really exciting. And I'm running alongside to keep the technology as simple as possible so that I can keep it really, really cheap, or better yet, free for all of you, and frankly, cheap for me. So the longer I can keep this going. So that's me. That's what all of this is. I've had a career in technology, product management, in other networking telecom companies that are kind of irrelevant to all of this, but we get it. It's about families. All right. So what I have for you today is a presentation that looks at this project idea and where we are right now in the holidays, right? Looking ahead, here it is, the beginning of November. Oh, you know, I have something. I don't need to give stuff. I have something really precious. It's knowledge of that family. And all of us, I think, share a desire to spread that story, hook other people, if you will, into the joys of having that knowledge about our families and don't know how to do it. And especially a challenge, if I may say, for all of us, if I dare say, or more or less age cohorts. And kind of, if you're like me, you went all the way through college without a personal computer. The kids behind us live and breathe digital forms. So how do we get them excited? And that's one of the biggest challenges. And that's why I use the term project, because it can be anything. And now as we get each other engaged in it, it is all kinds of crazy things. So how can a project become a gift? So as it happens, back in August, again, timeline here, May, we took the platform offline. August, I took the first vacation in about 10 years. And September, I changed the name. So in August, I took a vacation to go visit my elder brother, who is now retired and has a beach house in the Outer Banks of North Carolina, and which is beautiful. I'd seen lots of pictures, lots of Zoom living rooms, but never been there. And I did a little poking around my grandmother's book and said, oh, we have a whole lot of family history there. Because as it happens, my mother's side of the family, several lines of it, were Quakers. So there's a big Quaker group that came down to North Carolina. And sure enough, so I put together basically a collage. This is me. I put together a collage to tell the story. It's got a timeline, it's got a family tree, it's got stories. And I photographed it and framed it and gave it to him as a gift with a QR code. Tap the QR code and you go to the online version. So I was telling people, I did an event in September to tell people about that. They liked it. But then all of a sudden I'm realizing I'm giving my brother's gift away to everybody else. And I just felt icky. So I decided to create one just for this purpose. So this tells a different story. And, you know, what is a collage? A collage is a way to tell a visual story. And what makes it more interesting, if you remember, what was it, the third grade? You did the like cutout magazines and things like that, and then you point to stuff. It's more interesting with the interactive part, right? It's a visual, but why are these things connected? Pointing to them, drawing a line, suggests they're connected, which suggests curiosity. And now you want to know. So I'm going to pass this around. Don't worry, not a big deal. It is, I made that. I actually had the frame around. And that's the project that I will give you detail on, but I will also give you high-level detail to why we're doing this and how we're going about it. There we go. And go. Advance, please. Oh, yeah. All right. So that was the introduction. I don't know how long that took, but that was basically it. The main talk won't be very long, so that we have lots of time to discuss. So I want you to hold those questions. Feel free to interrupt if you need to along the way. At the end of it, I will have a recipe. Because you know what? This turns out to be the magic ingredient. The difference between a crazy idea and a project recipe is specifics. So I did the first of these recipes in September, expecting that my job, I was going to have to do a whole bunch of these. So I was sitting around thinking of all kinds of crazy ideas. My community said, oh, please, can I go? Can I go next? Can I go? And it turns out it's really fun to, it's like people standing around saying, oh, what app do you use for that? People love to talk about how they did something. So this lets you tell the how I did something and then see, oh, wait, I could do that for my story and apply it. So that's the essence of what we're doing. And a little secret tip, I structure all of the recipes exactly the same way with lots of room for notes and commentary and lessons learned so that in time I could combine them all into a cookbook. And I think that would be a good thing for a nonprofit to have, because, that's kind of what we do. So let's go ahead and get going. So a family history often starts with the stuff. If you're like me, you've got the boxes and boxes of stuff. And the stuff is confusing and disconnected, and it's always hard to know. But when you peel back the surface, you get to the good stuff, and you find the stories at the core. And the stories are really what gets you going. By the way, you'll see that blue book quite a bit. That's my grandmother's book. I have, thankfully, now 2 copies of it. And I also scanned it, put it into the archive.org, and I've already seen other people quoting it, which is kind of amazing. So I'm going to start with a little bit of stuff, then use it to share a story, and then show you how you can turn a story into a gift. That frame I'm passing around absolutely came from that book. I even have pieces of that book in there. Now, this one starts with a mystery, and a lesson learned from the last one. Part of what makes this interesting is having a hook. Why did this happen? So this photograph appeared in my family collection. I got it from my mother. I started caring for my mother about 10 years ago, as she had a dementia diagnosis. And 2014, we moved her out here, and she was slowly losing the ability to tell me the story. She passed away last year. The complexity of families and so on. This photo had my aunt's handwriting. My aunt is another 12 years older than my mother. And it had her handwriting on it with a Scotch tape across that patch there that said, somebody in a Shriner's costume. And I looked at him, and I'm like, you don't look like a member of my family. I don't know. And what is this letter? What is this all about? And I could not figure it out. So I did what we all do, right? I took a scan of it, and I went to Facebook. And well, I've already kind of said this. This is how I shared this one as a project. So I went to Facebook, because there's groups for things like this, and said, here's my conundrum. Can anybody give me any guesses? And people were guessing as to what was written on it and all those kinds of things to get there from here. And finally, out of 50 messages or something, somebody pops in and says, you already know the answer, right? I'm like, no, really, I don't. So it turns out that they had seen a blog post written by a scholar that had that same guy in a different photo from pretty much the same studio session in an article. It was the same guy. And they just pointed me to the scholar. Went to the scholar and, went back and forth on the conversation. She's been writing about the family for a decade or more. She later wrote this article, which is fascinating, and I started to piece the things together. So what I discovered was that I believe that cabinet card was stuffed into this album that was passed on by my 3X great-grandmother, and it was with materials my grandmother got to me slowly through my aunt and my mom, and they all had links to the same Quaker school in Indiana at the same time. So that simple mystery is what I tried to depict in here. So as I went through each of these things, I went and found maps. They're beautiful map resources, and I have some tips on those. This stripe through here is the book. In fact, I'll show you some more about this, and we'll talk about that in a second. And build like a yarn map, right? Those police procedurals, and they have a giant glass wall, and they're pulling yarn or pins. That's kind of how I think about it, because you see one thing and then you go dig deeper. And that's how each of those things come together. And I was looking it up again to try to do this, and I found a letter that had been stuffed into the album, which is just blah, blah, blah. And I discovered that there is a reference in there, speaking of Earl, And then I go figure out, well, who is he? Who's the writer? Who is this other person they're talking about? So pretty soon I discovered that the old class chum was talking to my great-grandfather about the person who brought them all to Earlham School and introduced my great-grandfather to my great-grandmother, who's owned the album. And that's why she kept all of those things together. Probably that card was a gift, is my guess. Now, I have since returned that cabinet card to the family, which was especially sweet to be able to do. They now live in Houston, Texas. So the guy is Joseph Arbeli, and my connection was this incredible story-keeping great-grandmother. That album, the date on it, Lizzie Jakeles, by the way, not Jacques, Jakeles, Indiana. She dated it in 1884 when she was 19 years old, 2 years before she married. And she kept the scrapbook through the passing of, I guess, her father-in-law. And, you know, so there's all these family, and then there's a lot of stuff stuffed into it that was much later. This letter was 1937. So she kept this all that time. To me, the lesson is in the Quaker roots of our family and passing that gift on to what I discovered to our own family. And oh, by the way, here's an insider tip. I told you I was cute. I got a gift like this. It's got a big story behind it. I can print a bunch of copies of this and send it. I could even go to a service like MPix and have it sent, mailed for me, and then follow it up with a QR code and the story behind it and send it on to it. So it has a certain efficiency to it, good thing. And it makes a fun gift. Let's hope they don't watch the recording. So let's pause for a minute and go look at the digital version. So as I said, there's a QR code on it. And at the end of this, and in fact, on your handout, is a QR code that you can go look at it yourself as well. But right here in the presentation, I'm going to look with my magic of technology that takes me to a browser window. I'm using a computer I've never touched before. I click on a link. It takes me to, in this case, I'm using a software called Canva, widely used graphic thing. They added a whole bunch of new features that frankly confuse and scare a lot of people. It's not so scary. It's not so confusing. And by the way, I did a Tuesday tutorial on using the Canva whiteboard. It's pretty popular. I may be doing it again. Some more of the version that I did is recorded and available to anybody. And from what you can see here, one of the things that I like the best about this is that you can, I'm an unfamiliar computer here, but see how you can zoom in and out? And oh, by the way, it's pretty darn fast. So here is the illustrated historical atlas of the state of Indiana. And up across the top, just because I could, I put in a timeline. Frankly, that timeline kind of helped me. I've got some other nifty new software tools that I'm thinking about using to show timelines. I might do a tech tutorial on doing that as well. Interactive timelines, not just graphic timelines. I went through each of the counties where something interesting is. So here in Wayne County is the city of Richmond. And the city of Richmond is where Earlham College is. And so since I was going to be handing this out, I wanted to go in and actually spell it out. So here's a little bit of a narrative that tells that actual story that you'd never be able to read off of that version, but that's okay. You just click on it and you go, pinch and zoom to go in to read. And then that tells that part of the story. This even has the article, which helped me put it all together by this scholar, Dr. Jacobs. And so you can see here, this is actually a very cool tool called Story Map that lets you see there's the photo that put us all together. And there's my photo in her story. And she tells the tale of how the family all came together and traveled and what their years were, where they were, and that sort of thing. It's a wonderful, wonderful tool. This is the professional edition, but there are other ways to do story maps as well that are key. So the point was to say, how am I want to have a tangible thing to give as a gift. But I want the story. It's just a hook. I want the story to pull them in. And I frankly spent 2 days on a weekend, I think, putting the story together, and it was hard to let go. It's still hard to let go. I'm still, and oh, by the way, you don't have to let go, because once you print it, keep adding it to it. And it's kind of like a website. It's never really done. You could just keep adding to it and keep going. And I'm thinking, I may give this one to my brother also, but I'm not sure. But I can keep creating other versions. It's once you get the handle of using the components to it. You saw me fussing a little bit to get used to moving in and out. It's just a matter of what your keyboard setup is and that kind of thing. So now that you have the story, you turn around and make the gift of it. So making a gift makes family history itself the gift. And I think that's really what is so exciting for what you all are doing here and what brings all of you here on a weekday evening. You are committed to this process. In thinking about what we were going to put together as a community of Project Kin, I'm thinking my own time, I had to make some sense of it, and I needed a little framework to understand it. So I put this together in the first component of what I described as the 5 essential elements to family history projects is first digital. It doesn't have to be delivered digital, but so many of our precious records are in paper form today where they are vulnerable. You know, what is a photograph? A photograph is not a piece of paper. A photograph is an image that might be captured for now on a piece of paper or even a bit of celluloid. When you digitize it, you give it new life, new forms that you can share and enjoy that. That's kind of how I think about it. When you think that way, not I've got a chore to do, go digitize my photos. Think about that in terms of transforming it to do new things with it. It also makes it feel like less of a big chore, a big arc, narrative arc, and huge, get it all scanned. That's just getting started. So it's much more fun. You can't read the entire library at once. It's much more fun to find the pieces that interest you and keep going like a little Montessori kid walking around on jobs in a classroom. To me, it just is a lot more fun that way. So digital is the first element. And we talk a lot about, we have a special program all about the process of digitizing, techniques, how to archive the originals, that kind of thing. The second is once it's digitized, you have all of these, I call them AI fueled tools. But once it's digitized, you have things, you can do stuff, right? I talk about facial organization, and I have alternatives now without my Ponga software to do that. And there are many, but oh, wait, if you did that now, how are you tracking who the people are in the pictures? And, you know, the complexities to doing that, the best practices for doing that as a community, we teach each other, we learn from each other, we document what we know, and we keep it going. So the third key area is storytelling. We're talking about stories. And as any writer will tell you, there is an art to telling a story. There's some wonderful resources. We'll continue to bring in people as speakers on the subject. And I'm certainly continuously learning how to actually do that storytelling process. Fourth and fifth are the two, to me, fundamentals that make family history projects different from digital asset managers and businesses, or cool, fun things you can do on Family Tree magazine says there's 23 fun things you can do as gifts. Well, that's all true, but wait a minute. Let's think very carefully. This is, if you're going to spend your time doing it, make sure that archiving is anticipated, is planned for, and privacy. And if you have a structure about that, then each incremental project you're doing is adding to the larger story and not just cruft that's going to go get lost. And I think that's really important because I can do that. So these 5 elements come together in a project like this, which was, as I said, a framed collage and the digital component. It could be any number of things. We have some fun events coming up that are, addressing different kinds of events. That picture at the bottom right a moment ago was the recipe. And, that's an example. Again, you're going to have access to that recipe. For holiday events, I was visiting my brother. I grew up in Hawaii. In Hawaii, you go to visit somebody, you bring a gift. I think you do that everywhere, but there's a tradition to that. I couldn't visit my own brother and not bring a gift. So to have a gift that was a family connection that I, the little sister, could bring to tell him about the family history in a house he lived in for 12 or 15 years did make me kind of proud, I have to say. Inferiority complex little sisters. The kinds of projects that we're working on take those elements and then go all sorts of directions. Thinking about joint projects that could extend across generations. There's nothing to say it's not better when you rope in the grandchildren, for example. So coming up, we have an exciting lineup of events coming. Scavenger hunt for ancestors. We have this lovely woman who has been a youth organizer in Britain, and now she's moved home to Sweden. And she doesn't have children of her own, but has for years around the holidays organizes scavenger hunts for her nephews and nieces, where they get to the end of it and they have to answer questions about family history. The trick to making this work is dividing up the family into teams. So you have multi-generational teams, targeting the questions just right. So she's got a recipe that explains the levels that she's done. She's done it over and over again. Is that a digital thing? Is it a gift? It's all of the above together. And maybe there are gift components of it if that's what you want to do. Speaking of games and gifts, we've got another of our members. Remember I said I thought I would do all of these myself? Another one who's actually the founder of a very cool software company called weare.xyz, which if you've not heard of it, I definitely would recommend you checking out. Though I don't take sponsorships, I don't take affiliates. He's just a good guy. He has for years, I was complaining that wouldn't it be fun to have cards, playing cards that had like ancestors' pictures on each one? Everybody talks about 52 ancestors. Why not have a separate card and a QR code to go to a page about that ancestor? And he's like, well, I did that. I said, what do you mean you did that? He says, well, it's British. We have this game. Anybody heard of this called Happy Families? It's a thing. Anyway, I don't quite get how it works. He'd done the deck for Happy Families. And he's like, that's okay. I'll just change it. I'll do another deck for 52 ancestors. I'm like, okay. So November 30th, we're doing an event. He's presenting, I don't know, the cards are really done yet. He's in the middle of fundraising, but he said yes. And he'll do it live from Britain, from London. And this is the kind of enthusiasm of something like that, which I had been like, that would be kind of cool, but I wasn't willing to do it myself. His software is very good for presenting that blog post about that ancestor, and he's already done a lot of those. So this is nothing for him to just print it out in a different way. But that's kind of the point. If you've done something already, thinking about different ways to deliver it. And I remembered as a kid having a deck of playing cards with art on them, Japanese ukiyo-e. And I can tell my hiroshige from my, whatever. Anyway, so recognizing you absorb things lots of different ways. And you will start to see the family resemblance, say all of the hearts are this family. That's how he did it. All the hearts are this family, all the spades are that family, all the diamonds are that family. And I mean, it's just brilliant. Learning ebook. One of our members is a professor, actually she's an administrator at Oklahoma State University, where she works with a lot of, she has a background in anthropology and sociology. She works with a lot of children who are college kids, who are entering college and are the first in their families ever to go to college. They went through horrible, complicated, family situations, foster care, all these kinds of things. They get into a big university and feel like idiots. They feel like everything's wrong with them. it's just hard. It's really hard. These kids need extra support. That's what she does. Well, she has 2 adoptive children of her own. And she realized what it is that those kids go through if they don't understand what their family story was, and how family history gives you that resilience to know what others went through before you. And so she wanted to give that as a gift to her adoptive children. So when the eldest was very young, she wrote a children's book about that child's origin story. And it's translated into a very gentle fairy story that puts it in a child's perspective. It's incredible. She's got a version of it with her own voice telling the story. She printed it. And that worked out so well. She did another one for her second child. And then she had a child of her own birth. And she's like, well, he doesn't need one. And Mom, when she's like 5, I want one too. Why don't I have my book? She realized, wow, I should have recognized that one. She's actually done a number of books. And so her recipe not only includes how to do a book, a children's book, but also real thoughtful guidance from, frankly, a scholar on those challenges, those real challenges of people. This was the second talk we had. So each of these kinds of things has just been amazing. And one of the reasons why I'm so excited to talk to new groups, because all of you have more ideas. I have a whole section on the website of crazy ideas. If you're looking for ideas, this is our list of crazy ideas. What's yours? You can add them yourself into the form, and I pop them in there. So you see the framed piece, you see the QR code, and I can go through each of the different components that make this work. First, as I say, the layers of research had to do with my Nana's book, to go through and try to understand what she was telling me and correlate that once I had this picture and I had the reference to Indiana. Second was the hook. It's not really, a story doesn't hold together unless there's a narrative thread, and the hook holds the other end of that thread and keeps that tension going all the way through it. So that was really important. In this case, I realized that the picture was the hook. In my brother's case, honestly, I think this one's a little improvement over that one. So I didn't really understand the challenge of the hook in the first one. But the part of the hook there was, it's about this place. I'm in this place. We're in this place. Let's go see Elizabeth City and Eatonton and the physical places nearby. So that was kind of the hook, I suppose. Finally, just how do you do it? How do you make this happen? And I created the yarn map with Canva. You don't have to use Canva. You could use yarn and a cork board and take a good picture, and then have different QR codes if you want to use QR codes to connect things, or even write out a URL to make that happen. By the way, QR codes is one of those things that, from a technology perspective, I've been living with all this time, but I realized from our membership that a lot of people kind of sort of knew, but weren't really clear with it. So I did a session about that. And apparently it was very helpful to just sort of demystify it. Where does it come from? How do you use it? What to look out for? What a dynamic QR code is, what free ones are, how you can get dynamic and free one, that kind of stuff. And then, of course, I have that code here, and then little things. It turns out there's a minimum size for a QR code, and it really comes down to resolution. So 1 inch by 1 inch, this is less than that, but it's okay because it's very high resolution. How do you get really high resolution? It's a big difference between a printer and a photographer. So this is photo printed. I had it, 8 by 10 photographically printed. So it's very high resolution, and that made a huge difference. On the version that's online, it's actually a copy because you don't need the QR code once you're already online. And it also helped me keep separate copies and keep them straight. Figuring out how you get that thing that can be any size and have it display in an 11, 14 by 16 frame and an 8.5 by 11 aspect ratios. How do you calculate the aspect ratio? I have all of that in the recipe. It's basically a little arithmetic. And the arithmetic will save you because I got caught myself. And the result, as I said, is this project being able to put these pieces together. And high resolution, again, is really, really your friend. I learned lessons. Again, I cover these in the recipe. The first is start with a goal, because know where you're going. In this case, I was a gift. The first time I did it, I had to get on an airplane. So that was a problem, because how big can it be that I can take it in my carry-on? When is the flight? They don't have mats at the store near me that were the same size as the aspect ratio I designed it for. This is why aspect ratios were my friend. I had to change everything at the last minute. Where am I going to get it printed and get it back in time, et cetera, et cetera. So thinking about those kinds of things can really be helpful to knowing where you're going for it. So start with a goal and who has that access. So coming back to points like archiving and privacy, QR codes in their, all they're really doing is taking a little magic blurb and software on a phone that does something as a result. Could have a QR code that is a phone number, for example. Typically, these days, we use it for a URL, a website, so it brings up a website. Well, that's great, but anybody could get there. So do you want to make that website password protected? I decided not to let the perfect be the enemy of the good and just let it go straight. It didn't have to have a password login. It could. But since it was going to hang in my brother's home, that's okay. By the way, that's one of the reasons I no longer use his version to demonstrate things, because, hey, it's my family. So this one is appropriately sanitized to tell the story I'm telling here. There's nothing very sensitive about it. This really is my great-grandparents. Well, that's them young. And, you know, those kinds of things. These, you probably recognize the fan views of family trees. Personally, I'm a big fan of that. And I like that so well, by the way. I wish there were a way to download it from the site. I just take screenshots and then trim them. But I have some photos, actually, these are two of them, some photos of my ancestors that I've made a nice little frame of, 4x frame with their little name tags on. And I want to add a family tree to show my kids who they are. Because it's all very well and good to have a name, but really, who are they? That's the important thing, right? So I'm going to take a fan map and then basically color it, print it out, and hang it underneath that same piece. So now you can see I have a 1822 cross stitch that a great grandmother made. Now, who is she again? I have no photographs from 1822. And it's just really nice to be able to put all of those kinds of things together. And now you say, oh, that's pretty cool. And it's on the inside of the house, so there's no sun on it. It's already badly damaged. Constraints force decisions. I've already given this example because I couldn't get a mat 8 by 10 or whatever, 9 by 7. I had to switch to 8 by 10, and I had to figure out what size can you print and what's the cheaper way to print it and what's the minimum print you can do, and so on and so forth. I do recommend, by the way, Photo Lab in Berkeley. They're wonderful. Very, very high quality, very, very reliable. Keeping it simple, talking about a visual story. The very first one of these actually combined bits of both of these stories, my brother's and this one, into one gigantic thing, because I was so impressed that it could be so big. I just kept going. And that's another very easy error to make. It's kind of like writing a massive narrative. Narrowing it down to an understandable, digestible story. You already could walk away and tell somebody else it was about a cabinet card and what was the connection to the family. It's not so complicated. And you don't have to tell everything at once. And finally, yeah, frames are hard. Be careful, measure twice, cut once, you know, testing the QR code. I was very lucky and pretty experienced, but you get your size, you get it on your screen at close to 100%. I would even take it down a little bit, like 80%. If you can still scan it from your screen when it's 80%, then at 100%, you should be completely fine. Little things like that to watch for. And then I talked a little bit about archiving. I have my final copy that I printed from. Archive, not just backup, but archive. To me, archive is separate from backup. Backups are backups of what I'm working on right now. Did the project and put it in that ultra safe magic place that won't be touched. I keep messing with it. That goes into my backups because don't let perfect be the enemy of the good, right? And I talked a little bit about privacy already and my cliche, but I'm sharing it with family members. This version, I know I'm sharing it with all of you. You're very welcome to use it and see what we do. You know, play with it. I've already given you some of these examples of some of the kinds of things that we have been experimenting with and our members have asked about. And here you go. You can take that probably from sitting down, and it's also in your handout there that you can use. When you click on it with Canva, when you click on it, it goes to a website, but it could be your own website. It could be your family search ID. Then you would have to have a step to log in, but that's okay. You can log in with your phone. You know how to do that. So it could be anything. Trying to think of what else I had on me. Oh, so for all of you, I have the recipe there as well. I would love to have you all join me in our Project Kin community, but I figured all of you were just here coming in, so I wouldn't require that to be able to download the recipe. So that's an example of a QR code, by the way, that should just download a PDF if you've tried that. And then you see the QR code to go to Project Kin. So that's my story. Yeah. Are there questions? Can anyone get there?
Mine is saying
Not found.
I know, I got to the bottom one, but the top one told me not found.
Well, maybe it says 2024. All right, so this one is just Ponga. Let's try.
this one is not.
That's a model.
No, Canva not found, for open.
I changed something. Be careful if you change something. That's okay. We have the technology. I can even demonstrate. How about that? Let's first see. I'm going to guess that I'm copying out that URL.
Yeah, it is.
I can't manage the copy paste on this keyboard. Bit.ly 40 can okay.
Yeah, that's the one.
40.
You gotta get a new place.
Okay. What? Is that right?
So we can go.
Oh, there we go. Copy. See what I'm trying to do here? Okay. All right, so that something is wrong on the QR code, so the URL should work. So see how it says, if you type out the URL? So you're the one with the little house on it? Yeah. bit.ly.40.
Okay, type that one.
Type it. I'm sorry about the QR code. Now, how did I do that QR code? I also use, oh yeah, oh, I know what it was, with hover code. Wait a second. So I use various different QR code plans. It's best to stick to one, but I have sort of special uses for some. Hover code is nice because it is dynamic. It is dynamic QR codes, which means that you can keep the image the same, but change the URL. There we go. Okay, so this one, it was created. Oh, from within Canva, I get it. So I go back to Canva. So in Canva, you have the ability to, you have apps, including the cover code app. Will it show me my past ones? No, it's not. All right, I'm sorry. I'll have to decode what went wrong with that on my own time. But these are some of the kinds of things that you do need to test and check for. A dynamic QR code means that the image stays the same, even if you change the URL. In this case, the URL is working and the image is not. You're on the picture?
Yeah.
Can you, you can navigate around? Everybody else able to get to the picture if you wanted to?
I did that by, typing in the URL.
Okay, sorry about
Yeah,
that.
wonderful.
I was
I didn't look at it. You got, I did.
what happens if you go to this one? Just out of curiosity. Make your part of this. Testing. Do you tap on the yellow part? Not doing it? Okay. At least I now know where the error is. Canva is moving fast and breaking things, they say. So I'm pleased with the direction they're going in because it's just opening up whole categories of things. Let's say the support people know me well. And because I've been on the other side of that kind of development, I'm very nice and give them very specific information. I'm confident that they are actually going to be fixing bugs that I find. And so sometimes, as we were saying earlier, Denise, and sometimes she caught me on my front slide that said 2024. Sometimes when you run into something and it's not working, especially if you're a little uncomfortable and unsure about using the computers, you assume you're doing something wrong. Maybe not. Maybe not. Certainly as an entrepreneur with new software, I have to say, we made a lot of mistakes. We had just 4 people. You do your best. And so the best ways to know whether it's you or the software is not necessarily to run to support, because they probably don't know, they know a fraction of what you know. So it's usually isolating variables. So the first thing I did was, is the URL wrong or is the picture wrong? Right? And we found that typing in the URL works. Picture's wrong. Okay, that's easy. Where did it go wrong? And that's where I started to go figure out where it was created. I won't take you through all of that. That's obviously a mistake that I made on these pieces. And as I said, I made several versions of this. I deleted old ones. That's probably what I did. It's probably that I used that picture to be a different one. And I deleted it. So do you have any project ideas you might be thinking about? Family history? Yeah, you want to share one? You want to share one with the class?
Yeah, well, I was working on one, have a lot of recipes from my grandmother and my aunts. And one year I just took the recipes and I put a picture of my grandmother in the kitchen cooking and told the story about how she taught me how to make the best cornbread you can ever make.
There you go.
And we didn't buy corn mix. We were so poor. You know, she used to take popcorn. And I would take this hard little stone she had and I would, chop it. And I would be there all day chopping popcorn and making it into flour.
Oh,
And
wow.
my hands and my arms would hurt. I told that in the story. But
Wow.
that was the best cornbread in the world.
That is a project.
And I make my cornbread that way today. But I don't chop it, I put it in the blender.
But here's the thing.
Yeah.
That's not a story about cornbread.
No, it isn't.
It isn't.
About
It's a
the
story
hard
about
work.
you.
Yeah.
It's a story about you.
Yeah.
And I want ways to take a story like that about you, include the food, the recipe to make the food, the mistakes, the tips, but your voice. Maybe video too, depends on what works. The pictures, the spills, the grunt, the mess, because that's what makes it, and it's something we can do today that we've never could before. As I said, my own family, we moved so much, I certainly never had the recipe cards. I always wished I did. I'm so jealous of people who have those recipe cards and those stories. And that to me is what I even use the word recipe, because I want some of those products. Can I talk you into it? I write the recipes. It's full service. I will do slides for you to present it, or no,
I have. Slides. I mean, I was always in the kitchen with her cooking, so I have all her recipes, most of them, the ones that I really like.
Yeah. And I now have a number of people who have sort of said, I've got those recipes. I want a project. And to me, the difference between a cool idea and a project are things like, again, think about the aspect ratio, right? It's the details that are afterthoughts. It doesn't have to be complicated. I do documentation, right? I can do that stuff in my sleep. I'll take care of all that stuff. I want that joy. And I want the human joy that you can do now. I lost my mom before she could capture any of that sort of thing. And she had this funny, so I came to California, to Silicon Valley to go to college. I get home, my mom has an Apple IIc. I'm like, oh, how cool. And it's got the source on it. You can explore the world. It's the coolest thing. Oh, don't touch it. What do you mean? Oh, don't touch it. You'll screw it all up. Maybe that's what I was out to prove by going into technology. I'm not sure. But she was always out on the outer edge of something to try out. Always had to have the biggest, the most complicated one that she didn't quite have understood. I wish I could have captured her voice, her enthusiasm to do those kinds of things. And she's gone. But I'd like to think that she instilled that in me, and I've got a job to do to instill that in others. And those are stories that will, be so important to your families, all of them. Ways to bring that forward. I don't mean to call anyone out, but you noticed the name perhaps Tien. So my family name is Tian. It's a Chinese name. My husband's family is one of these what's called the second wave of Chinese who left during the Sino-Japanese War and the communism takeover of China. He came through Taiwan and eventually here. They were all his dad's generation were all in college or entering college, 8 brothers and sisters. And so today, my father-in-law is 95, sharp as a tack. In fact, he's planning his next trip back to China alone, doesn't want to have the rest of the kids with him because they'll just slow him down.
Like it.
And he has, he knows what I'm doing. He's looked at me and like TikTok, I've got stories to tell. And so we've worked out a way in his case, building websites, the family side of the site, the things that are going to be on that site, how we do that. I haven't even written any of this up. My brother-in-law came up with a fabulous idea. Ghost stories. This is before Halloween. And so we set up a Google Meet because it's free to, I have a paid Google account anyway, so I'm not paying for Zoom because I'm cheap. And we set up an account. My brother-in-law put together slides of stories he'd worked out with my father-in-law to tell the stories. And he had our children and my sister-in-law's children and so on all lined up. This was a test to see if it kind of worked. And had him tell stories for about an hour. 4 stories with slides that sort of set the context of what part of China at the time and what he remembered and what he heard. The kids were rapt. It was fabulous. And of course, I've got it all recorded with the slides. That was just number 1. We're going to do some more of these. Different topics, different ways. That's a project. Is it digital? Yeah. Is the important part digital? Absolutely not. The part that's important is the alma, as we say in Spanish, is the heart. So, I'm privileged to, in this family, in the Tian side of the family, I get to be the one to ask the stupid questions because nobody expected me to know. And it turns out that in many transnational families, you have, different generations that speak different languages at different times. Chinese has the complications, especially this generation, between traditional scripts and simplified scripts. And some audibly understand it, but don't read it, et cetera, et cetera. So right now he writes stories in Chinese with Microsoft Word, and then it goes down to a whole pass down of the cousins who were educated in Chinese, but some in simplified and some in traditional, and they pass it back and forth to just get the translation done. And I'm like, what I did was I put together a website and have a way that he drags it. He emails the file, put it into a folder, and poof, it's available to everybody. And we're, working on the operational side to make all of that work. I haven't quite got everything yet, but this one's not my story to tell. I'm just IT into this, right? So I have to delicately balance, not pushing too hard. But I can do all that for all of you. To make the operational side go away. Yeah.
I've got a little sensitive thing I'm trying to think what I should do. Tell it or bury it.
That's a great question.
I have a great-great-grandfather who was involved at some sense in an Indian massacre. He was 13-year-old member of the militia that destroyed an entire group of Indians, not a tribe, but a group.
That's it's an excellent question, and I think is the kind of thing the woman who I was telling you about with her adopted children has a really interesting point about the importance, the psychological importance of talking about having hard conversations. And she talks about the difference between things that are private and things that are secret, right? There was an out of wedlock marriage in my own family, none of us knew about until about 15 years ago. That was a secret. Unearthing these things, there are layers that have nothing to do with technology, obviously, that bring that in. And personally, I fall on the side of kind of a truth and reconciliation side, and unearthing it to give larger context, larger understanding, where we build empathy and learn. Forgive me for being direct about this, but in this country, we have a lot of terrible things. Terrible things. You talk about Indian massacres, slavery. We're talking about my own family in Quaker country, which they were pacifists. They did good things in terms of things like the Underground Railroad, and they were pacifists, would not fight the war on the Confederate side. They would not fight the war on the Union side either. And, I think contextualizing these kinds of stories so they come out to truth and understanding is really important. My own family, from a historical perspective, I grew up in Hawaii, studying East Asian studies, fair understanding of key elements of Asian history. But, things like internment camps on the West Coast, I can't tell you, I usually am the first person to tell most adult Americans about that horrible part of American history. They don't, you guys are historians, but they don't seem to know that. The Chinese Exclusion Act. These are just terrible parts of our history. And in my view, they will overlap in our personal histories. My wonderful grandmother and her fabulous book, published in 1948, is distinguished by the fact that everybody lived valuable, productive lives. Because that's how it was in 1948. I dug in, I'm like, really? Very prosperous people living in North Carolina? Really? 1700, 1800? Really? And it does turn out that the Quakers had some really come to get serious and understand. It was a very complicated thing that found ways to manumission, to return, but it was complicated. And I was a little bit proud of that, but that's why it's an important story. What's this generation going to do? A little politics, I'm sorry. Is that helpful?
Yeah.
It's late, we're all tired. I don't need to go to 8 o'clock.
Well, thank you, Barbara. It was a very good presentation. I'm sure people will stay around and talk to you privately with any other things.
Absolutely.
Appreciate your presentation.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you.
Barbara.
Thank
Very
you.
good.